Welcome to the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles, the podcast dedicated to the commercial food and repair industry. My name is Pat Toby. I'm a lead master certified technician at General Parts Group and a certified special trainer. Our goal is to shine a light on what we believe to be one of the most interesting and rewarding industries a field service technician can work in. We love the work we do, and we are glad you're here listening to the podcast. In this episode, we feature Toby Overton for Young Guns Series number 2. Hey, before we get started today, I want to take a moment to thank our podcast sponsor. Today's sponsor is Ridgid Tools. So today's episode is brought to you by Ridgid Press Tools, the ultimate solution for plumbing and pipe fitting professionals. If you are in the business of getting the job done right the first time, Ridgid Press Tools is a name you can trust. Visit www.ridgid.com to find out more. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles. Tonight, it's just Rich and myself. Jason had some family stuff he wanted to tend to, and I had to let him off, unfortunately. It is the night before Thanksgiving, so I can't hold that against him. But we are very fortunate enough to have Toby Overton on. Toby runs a pretty cool group in Facebook, HVACR Component Teardown, but he's seen the little series we did last week about the young guns, and he wanted to involve. Toby is 24 years old, and he's been doing refrigeration and HVAC stuff since he was 16 years old. So we're excited to have him on. So how are you tonight, Toby?
Doing good. How are you?
Good. Rich,
yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be a part of what you guys are doing here.
We're glad to have you, bro.
It's a blast, man. We have fun. We don't get too crazy. We just like to explain, what our job is and, why we like it. Some days we don't like it. Some days we love it. How it goes. You've been there, I'm sure.
Yep.
So, Rich, you worked on anything crazy this week?
This whole week has been a crazy week.
That's short.
I told you I had that F this fryer, but that finally got figured out. Man, I would say the highlight of my week was changing out an RTU. I mean, it's simple, but I always enjoy changing out RTUs. I don't know what it is, but I like when the crane shows up to a job site. That's still always cool to me.
Dude, it's the best because it's nothing you don't do it all the time. So when you get to do it, it's cool. You're over there giving hand gestures to the crane. The crane driver's like, "This guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing." But I think it all works out. My favorite has the remote control, and he comes up on the roof, and he's just like, he has a remote control. He's just controlling the crane from the roof.
Oh man, wow. Ours aren't that fancy, but they're still pretty cool. We get one guy that they send out, and he always moves everything so close to the building. Like I honestly thought he was gonna take out part of the wall on the roof there on this past one, and I was actually kind of hoping for it because I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool. But every time he's there, it gets me so nervous, and I'm like, dude, please send somebody else. But
if you get a boom down, he's hitting the building. Is that what you're scared of?
Huh?
If he has to boom down, he hits the building because the boom can't go over that far.
Pretty much.
What's worse than that is when you're going to pull a unit up off the roof and the curb tape sticks a little bit too well, and then it all lets go all at once and it bounces on the crane.
I've got a good story about that. So we were doing a rooftop change out. Crane showed up. This had already been a nightmare, but the crane showed up and it was the biggest crane I've ever seen. It was one where it's two trucks bringing in, and we were down the road doing a job, so they sent us over here to do this. I'm like, dude, it's like a 10-ton rooftop unit, dude. We don't need this crane. He's like, oh, I'll get it. So I'm like, and this roof had been redone, and they did some shit I didn't know, but we hook up to it, dude, and it's struggling, and the crane struggling. And all of a sudden, bam, and he rips the entire curb off the building. So someone had shot screws down through the curb adapter into the curb, and then through the unit into the curb adapter because it was a real wonky curb adapter, and I didn't know it. And it ripped the curb off the roof of a Chuck E. Cheese, dude.
Wow.
The crane guy's like,
that had to be fun.
The crane guy's like, yeah, they were struggling a bit. I was like, and you just kept going? I was like, oh my God, dude. So yeah, we just ended up picking it all up and went and got a bunch of treated plywood and laid down, put tarps over it. Had to come build the curb back, and dude, it was terrible.
What kind of roofing material was it?
It's just a black membrane roof.
Yeah. What a mess.
Dude, it ripped that. It made the weirdest sound on the whole stuck, and I was like, what the just happened? And I look over and I was like, oh, the curbs are gone. Curbs detached. I'm like, here we go.
Wow.
That's why I question our safety policy. We got to tie off something that supports 5,000 pounds, but what am I going to tie off to a roof that's going to support 5,000 pounds? Nothing. Roof.
Right.
rooftop units are screwed down. I mean, so you can't attach them in.
Mm-hmm.
Enough about that. So, Toby, you've been doing this since you were 16, 17 years old, you said, right?
Yeah, 17 years old. Yep. I was in my junior year of high school.
So, was someone you know working this, or a family member, or just seeing a job to be a helper, or how'd you get involved?
So it was over the summer, in between my junior and senior year, and one of my friends from church, he owned a residential heating and cooling company, and he suggested that I work with him and make some money over the summer, and I gave it a shot and did that for the summer, and I kind of decided that I liked it, and I wanted to find my own trade. I mean, my dad, when I was growing up, he did plumbing, and I worked with him a lot. And I decided that I wanted to do something similar to that, but I couldn't do the same thing. So HVAC was pretty close there because, you braze, you solder, you work with a lot of the same piping and stuff like that. But it's a lot more, and it's just a different job, and that's kind of what I wanted.
I like it when a plumber grabs a refrigeration pipe and they say the size. I'm like, no, it's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's always a battle who's right on the pipe size.
I've just given up. They can call it whatever they want.
Yeah, that's funny. So you graduated high school and you went to a local refrigeration school, you said?
Yeah, so I graduated high school, and then basically like a week or two after I graduated, I went down about 2 hours south of where I lived, and I went to the refrigeration school in Phoenix. I went to their 9-month electromechanical technologies course, which covers just electrical theory, residential electrical wiring, commercial wiring, solar, and then 6 months of residential and commercial heating and air conditioning and refrigeration.
That sounds like a pretty good program.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun there. I learned a lot. And when I was in high school, I'll be honest, I wasn't the best student, but I think it was just because it didn't really interest me. But when I started out in trade school, it was something that every day I learned something new. And I really, I sort of got sucked into it just out of being really, really curious and interested in wanting to learn more about it. So I spent a lot of extra time there, and I really got my money's worth out of it.
So let me ask you this then, because a lot of old guys will always be like, oh, well, everything you learned in trade school, forget about it, throw it out the window, and all this crap. And yeah, there's obviously a difference between a controlled environment and being out in the field. But to me, a lot of at least the fundamentals, kind of give you a head start. How do you feel that trade school equipped you for the industry? Or, if it didn't equip you, what are your thoughts on basically going from trade school, going into the industry, and how well prepared you were?
So that's an interesting question, and that's partially true as far as there's not everything you learn in trade school is going to apply the exact same way. And for instance, the school that I went to, at least back at the time, all of their trainers and all of the equipment that they had was based off of 8 to 10 SEER package units and split units that were a bit more common over 10 years ago. And I definitely learned a lot of the theory, like the refrigeration cycle and how all of that works. The controls and that side of things, it definitely, that kind of equipment was still out there, but a lot of it was just newer computerized systems that I wasn't fully prepared for. But I think that the electrical theory and just the general concepts did allow me to have a head start. And I wouldn't say I forgot everything, but there was a couple of things that I learned that it may be that way in a classroom, but you can't expect those kind of conditions out in the field.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. I like a good, so much of refrigeration is not refrigeration. It's electrical, it's mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the last thing I check when I do any kind of, refrigeration work is the charge. I mean, it's always, I say 95 to 99% electrical. I mean, and then that 1%, okay, it's not electrical, it's not a dirty coil. Okay, now let's get into it. Find a leak, that kind of stuff. But yeah, most of the time it's a mechanical issue or electrical issue. So
yeah,
they cover that pretty well. It seems to do pretty well. So we got a couple quick questions. Brian Sanders wants to know if you wear Crocs.
I don't wear Crocs.
Crocs in the desert probably wouldn't be a very fun thing, Brian.
Well, this morning when I woke up, it was 28 degrees outside, so I don't think it's Crocs weather right now.
28 in the morning, and how warm it in the afternoon does it get up to?
Probably low 70s, mid 60s.
Nice.
This is the shoulder season where it's winter during the nighttime and then spring during the daytime, and it just keeps going back and forth until it decides to get cold.
It'd drive me nuts.
Oh, yeah. I love it. I love it.
Crocs come with liners, man. They are on it. These guys in their
Crocs with the UGG liners.
Dude,
I actually had a pair of cold weather Crocs.
No way.
I had that like that liner inside that's all like fluffy and warm and all that. And I used to wear them outside in 30, 40 degree weather. I'm like, these are great. Heck yeah.
That's funny. That's funny. So you graduated school and you came out. Did you get a job right away, or did you wait a while right into work? Did they help you find a job, or did you just do it on your own?
So they have a really, really good placement. I don't remember what they called it, but just a service within the school that will help you find a job. I think they have like a 90. Their placement rates up in the high 90% above that. And yeah, I think I graduated on a Friday, and then I had a job, by the next Monday. And the way I did it was every 3 months, the school has, 20 or 30 different employers come in and does a job fair. And the job fair, probably 3 or 4 months before I graduated, I actually set up my employment then. That way, while I was going through the more advanced courses towards the end of my schooling, I could just focus on the courses and not have to worry about also trying to do interviews and find a job at the same time. So I had it set up pretty well.
Sweet. So you came out and you went the residential route for a while, correct?
So the company that I worked for mainly did residential, but they also did light commercial, industrial, institutional, some hospitals, some government, that sort of thing. So it really was a wide range, but it was mainly just, in all those categories, just heating and air conditioning and ventilation. Not a lot of refrigeration or ice machines or commercial cooking equipment.
Nice. And so how long did you work there before you decided to change roles or change environments?
That's about 5 or 6 months.
So were you ready to do more things, or just ready to try something else, or?
I think I identified some things that I wanted to learn. When I was in trade school, you hear about a lot of different jobs and a lot of different, portions of the industry, but you never really get exposed to it until you meet the people that are actually doing the work in the field. And once I was out there doing it, I got to meet some people that were working in, restaurants and that sort of environment. And that's sort of, I identified that that's kind of what I wanted to do.
Nice. That's good.
I like the free food.
Don't get me started, man. Don't get me started. Like I always tell everybody, you get the free food, but you better get the gym membership too.
Yeah,
the free food is nice, but it's always kind of awkward when you're in a nasty restaurant and they want to order you they want to give you some free food, and it's just like, no, I'm good. No,
I tell them I'm vegan. I tell them I'm vegan.
Oh, that's
I worked for a company back in Florida, and my boss was just blunt. Like, y'all think I'm blunt? This dude was blunt. And we were doing an install in a place or something, and they say, "Hey man, y'all want some free food?" And my boss just turns around and says, "Not from this nasty ass kitchen."
I've thought that a couple of times, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Michael Brown's a vegan. He says, "What's there for a vegan place?"
In 5 years, I've never worked in a vegan restaurant. I'll say that. I'm not sure why, but I've never had the opportunity to do that. Good question, though.
Yeah, I don't know what you do in a situation. Just tell them you're what is meat? What do you when you only eat meat? I mean,
carnivore. Yeah,
carnivore. Yeah.
Sorry. They call in and say you were giving them a hard time or something. So, what caught my eye is your Facebook group. You do that HPC bar component teardowns, and you're always tearing apart some cool stuff. And I always like seeing how stuff works, and I've tore a lot of stuff apart. I've actually got some stuff on the van I'm gonna tear down and we'll put up on your page.
Thank you.
Coming. Try to get some of these other guys involved. But it's a pretty cool page. So you just take anything. It can be the simplest thing to the most elaborate part, and you just break it down step by step, how it comes apart, and then you explain the functions. If it's a switch, you show the contacts or the points, everything. Okay, this arced up or carboned up, this why it doesn't pass through voltage anymore. That kind of. A really good job breaking it down, explaining stuff, and it's a really cool page, and I like it a lot. So
yeah, thank you.
I think that's super cool because it goes back to what we were talking about before we went live. You know what I mean? Like, people don't know how stuff works. They don't know why stuff failed. So by being in that group, which I kind of cut out, so I don't know if Pat mentioned the name of the group, but if they didn't, go ahead and give yourself a shameless plug, because I think that's a huge educational opportunity for people in the industry. So that is awesome. But people do need to know why stuff failed, not just, oh, the switch is bad. Well, how did the switch fail? How did the contactor fail? What are the different ways things can go bad? So yeah, that's something that's definitely needed.
Yeah, and the main force behind me starting that group was at the beginning of this year, I started training a brand new technician. Minor experience, very, very well mechanically inclined, but he hadn't worked in the trade before. And he asked a lot of questions about how things worked and how different components operate. And I found myself saying, well, I really don't know how that works. And then that sort of jogged my brain to say, well, now I kind of want to know how that works so I can be able to explain it. And that's kind of what got me going in that direction.
Nice.
Yeah, that's cool. I was the same way when I first started. I wanted to tear some apart, see how it worked. A lot of times you don't have the time to do it, but if you get the space at home, bring the part home. If it's not warranty, don't throw it away. Bring it apart. And you never know. Someone may learn. They may see a pressure switch or something you fix. They don't know how it works. I think you should just like a little simple peanut pressure switch. Was that today?
Yeah, that was today.
Yeah, it's just simple. People didn't, they don't know, they don't realize it's a diaphragm in there. It just presses on a spring and it closes contacts. They don't realize that it opens contacts. And it's just simple as saying. People just like, oh, it's bad, it doesn't close. Well, why is it bad?
Right.
It is. Right. So it's really cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So you've been in the commercial refrigeration restaurant. You do some biomedical stuff. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so we do some work for some hospitals in the area and just medical facilities in general. Low temp, ultra low temp refrigeration as well.
I've never messed with anything ultra low temp. So I teach refrigeration for Sofesa. And I had a couple guys come in, and they're actually a friend of mine owns a shop up in like an hour and a half from me. And there's Union Company, Sofesa Company, and he had sent two of his guys there. And one of them, they were both very smart, but one of them was like, he was like borderline genius. Like, I was like, he was in there and like he was like answering all these questions, like asking me all this complex stuff. I'm like, I don't have an idea what you're talking about. He's talking like ultra low stuff and like, cascading systems. I'm like, dude, we're not here to talk about that. I don't have any idea. I can't break down cascade systems with you, dude. I don't know it. And, I'm like, you want to come here and teach the class, dude? But dude was like, he was like 20 years old and like a college dropout. He got bored at college and like just picked up this trade because he thought it was cool. I was like, smokes, man. But yeah, it's amazing what some of that medical stuff can do. So
it is, yeah. And it goes far beyond my level of understanding. The way it works at my company, they have the whole crawl, walk, run approach, and you learn how to work on exhaust fans and really basic air conditioners. And then every year, every as you advance, they give you more and more stuff. And ultra lows are basically at the end of the road. So I've got a long way before I get to learn how to work on those.
That's cool. You guys have a system like that because most places don't. They're just like, oh, go figure it out. I'm like, yeah.
I mean, in the summertime, there's calls to be run and there's stuff to do, but they definitely try to sort of take it pretty slow as far as learning how to work on the new stuff. That way, you're not just getting completely burned out and just wondering like, what am I looking at?
Yeah.
So we got a question here. EC2Fix. I shared it earlier. I saved it earlier, so I can bring it back up. But illustratively speaking, do you remember Ohm's law and the power formula? Few people do, and I use them all the time. Part of the toolbox in my head. I remember most of it. The be honest, I use an app for most of it just because it's easier and faster anymore. I got so much stuff rolling around in my brain. It's starting to function slower and slower. I'm 41 years old. I've done a lot of dumb stuff over the years, and it's getting harder and harder to recall some of this stuff every day. So I try to cheat everywhere I can.
I don't remember it at all. I don't care. I'm not ashamed of that. I don't remember it. I don't use it. No, sorry.
Yeah, Ohm's law is one of the things while I was in trade school that I just like tried to commit to memory. And one of the big light bulb moments for me when I was learning about electrical theory was they had a resistive heating element, just a heat element, and we took the resistance of it, we took the voltage to it, and then we figured out how many amps that it would pull, and we put power to it, and it pulled exactly that same amount of amps. And I was just like, wow, that's kind of cool.
Nice. Sorry. That's cool. So you've been doing, the restaurant stuff. Do you do a lot of hot side stuff, or mainly refrigeration, or just pretty good mix?
So for my first 2 years, I did just refrigeration and HVAC and ice machines. And then after that, they sent me to Cefesa for the EGSW certificate course. And then once I did that, once I went through that course, I started to work on a lot of the hot side equipment, and I'd say it's roughly about 50-50 now.
So Michael Brown wants to know where you are based out of.
I'm based in northern Arizona.
So you don't have to say the name of your company. You don't feel comfortable. I mean, to each his own. I'm not gonna force it to you. If you don't want to say it, you don't have to. It's not a big deal. But yep, northern Arizona. So what area? What cities?
So we have a technician in Camp Verde, a technician in Rimrock, and then a technician, me, in near Prescott, Arizona.
Sweet.
Yeah,
that's cool. So, what is your favorite piece of hot side equipment to work on?
Henny Penny Evolution Elite Fryer, gas fryer. I love them.
Well, you said that without a hesitation, boy.
Not whatsoever.
You decided to throw that one out there.
Yeah.
I won't ask you your worst, just your least favorite, just because
I prefer not to say.
I was going to ask.
There's going to be a list. I'm sorry.
The thing is, it's environmental. Like if you don't work on it, of course you're not going to like them. You know what I mean? I don't work on anything a lot, and when I work on one, I absolutely hate it because I don't do it all the time. But you sit me in front of the Fry Master of a computer screen, and I can tear that thing apart, blindfold, put it back together. And most everyone else, like, oh, I hate to use these things, you're over engineered. And I'm like, oh, I hate your henny pennies. I think they're turds. I mean, when people complain about stuff, it's because they don't know about it, though. Really, that's how you get stuck working on certain things all the time. So if you work on Taylor all the time, you don't like Garland. Or if you work on Pickle all the time, you don't like Fry. It's just what's in your area and what you work on.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. It don't bother me.
Yeah.
So, do you do a lot of ice machine work, or?
I would say ice machines. It probably is. It's in there, but it's not an everyday thing. It's maybe 1 or 2 calls per week on ice machines. When I was newer and I'm just getting into the industry, I did a lot of ice machine cleaning. That was sort of one of the things that I was good at. Just as far as the attention to detail and just being able to just stand there and, from start to finish, just a machine that's incredibly dirty, just take it and make it look brand new again. So, I do work on ice machines, all the major brands. I'm partial to Follett. I really like what they're doing and their equipment. But yeah, I do work on a lot of ice machines.
So when you clean an ice machine, are you the guy that has the different plastic brush attachments that go on your drill and clean up that?
No. So, and I don't own the special Hoshizaki brush that costs $100. I didn't buy that one. But no, most of it's just a Scotch-Brite pad, and then different, wire, just hand wire brushes and lots of ice machine cleaner. Lots of it.
I'll have a new guy with me, and I'll take him to an ice machine, and it takes us 4 hours, and we're completely stripping it apart. What each piece does and how to take it out. They're like, well, I worked with so-and-so. We just poured cleaner in it, and then we drained it, poured sanitizer in it, and then we turned it back on. I was like, well, you didn't clean an ice machine. I said, you rinsed it.
My question was going to be, how long do you normally take? Because, I mean, I got people that, they say cleaned ice machine, and I'm like, there's only an hour and a half of labor on this bill, so I don't know what you think you did, but you definitely didn't clean an ice machine.
Flushed it. That's about it.
It's really subjective because I might work on a machine that we cleaned 3 months ago and it looks, brand new. And then I'll work on machines that haven't been cleaned, and they were installed 4 years ago, and the last time they were cleaned is when it was put together at the factory. But I would say for Hoshizaki's around 4 hours to really, really get it if it's dirty, and then Manitowoc's and the other cubers somewhere around 2.5 on a good machine to really cover all the bases. The other thing we do is for the Follett the flaker machines, especially the Symphonies, the ones that you can fully disassemble without changing any parts. We do a full tear down on those all the way to the gear motor, and that takes roughly 4 hours per machine as well to tear it down and put it all back together.
And do you burn the ice in the bin before you clean them, or are you the type to try to cover up the ice and go, or what?
Almost always I'll try and burn all the ice, just that way we can clean the bin, because you never know. I mean, the top of the bin might look great, but at the bottom there might just be a bunch of gunk. So I would say 95% of the time I'm able to burn the ice, but if there's some extenuating circumstance where you can't, I have had to cover it before and just be really careful.
We have 2 big giant 55-gallon trash cans with the plates on the bottom where you can roll around, and we sanitize them. And some of our customers we do PMs for, they want us to burn the ice, but we can't get rid of the ice, so we just sanitize those bins and then rinse them out and just load them up, push them in the walk-in cooler. I had to push it in the walk-in freezer one time, and I was like, we got to pull it out like 4 hours later. I'm like, good luck with that, bud. You might as well push it in the parking lot, push it up.
You see, I don't do much ice machine cleaning anymore, but when I used to just tell the customer, look, I'll be here, say Monday to clean the ice machine. Make sure y'all bring some coolers. And most customers would bring coolers. They'd fill them up. They'd go to the bar, fill up the bins wherever they knew they were going to need ice. And then they were cool with it. But I was always big on, I told them, I said, look, I need to sanitize the bin. In my experience, at least 90% of the bins are nasty once you get through all the ice. So I'm like, let's get rid of all the ice. Let's get the bin clean. I'm like, I don't want to take the chance of getting any chemical splashed on the ice. And I know some of the chemical says food grade and all that. I just figure, you're better to, cover yourself by making sure there's no chemical. And then I'm the type also, when I clean them, the first 3 batches that I watch after I'm done, I like to burn those too. So I'm not sitting there trying to catch those batches of ice so they don't touch the rest of the ice underneath it and whatnot.
I'm a burn. I burn it as much as I can because that bin can be nice and clean, but if you look up at the bottom of that machine, there's stalactites hanging. It's
that too, yeah, exactly.
The bean looks great, machine looks great, but that bottom, dude, all it is you're one picky board of health person running a rag on the bottom of that, and you're getting a violation. So.
I've never seen that though. In all the years I've been doing this, I've never seen somebody fail for an ice machine.
They don't fail them; they just write them up. That's about it.
I've seen them get
never seen a write up or nothing.
Well, a lot of the customers have the internal investigations, like Stereotech, that it's a company they hire that comes in. Those guys are way more stringent on the ice machines, and I have seen them, deduct points for having that kind of stuff in the ice machine.
Most of my board of health, they check the temperature of the coolers, the product in them. They measure like the temperature of the sinks where they wash their hands and the dish machine. That's like it.
Really?
That's about it. Dude, they're in and out.
They must be really picky around here because I saw the checklist and there's like 5 or 6 pages of stuff they check off.
Every area is different. I think mine guys are just lazy, or they're probably understaffed. So they're probably trying to get to as many as they can. So they're just. I used to leave when I see board health show up. I just leave, but now I'm like, man, I go sit in my truck like 15, 20 minutes. And they're gone, so I know they ain't checking everything. And most of the time they walk out with a bag of food. So.
Have you guys ever been working in a restaurant and then the health inspector shows up while you're there and then the customer says, hey, you're working on this cooler that's not temping, right? You're in the middle of fixing that one, right?
Yeah, I've definitely been there. I've actually had customers if they knew the inspector was returning, because at least when I was in Florida, the inspectors would give you like, hey, we're going to come back on this date. You better have everything right. And they would basically schedule a service call and be like, hey, we want you here while the inspector's here. And I was literally working on stuff. The inspector was like, oh, this doesn't seem to be temping right. Don't worry, I'm just cleaning the condenser or whatever I'm doing, but literally going behind the inspector and whatever they said wasn't right, making it right while they were there.
Mm-hmm.
So Zach Cooper says, "What are you hoping for in the industry? What are you hoping for in the future in the industry, and where are you looking to be due in the next 5 to 10 years?"
That's a good question. I think that that I have a lot of options and a lot of different ways that I can go about it, and mainly I'm just focusing on growing my knowledge and improving the skills that I already have. But I think eventually what I'd like to end up doing is some form of technician training or over the phone tech support, just internally within the company, just because I think that companies are more successful when they have internal training programs that are, regimented and, set up. And we've seen an improvement with that in our company as well. So that's something I'd like to contribute to, is training the newer technicians. I like educating, and I think that that's an attainable goal as far as learning how to really teach other people difficult concepts.
Nice,
great answer. So Lee Jesse Sinez wanted to know, do you work on combi ovens? If so, what's your favorite one to work on?
Convotherm C4.
Do you guys just do that, or do you do the others too? Or
so mainly the ones that I've worked on were Convotherm. I have worked on some Baker Lux Cadco ovens. I haven't really worked on Rationale yet, but just mainly the Convotherm.
Yeah, I work on them all. They all have their differences. They all have their ups and downs. So, holy smokes. What was that?
I have no idea.
Somebody out there cooking in my kitchen must have dropped something.
It is the night before Thanksgiving, so
yeah.
I mean, it's just like everything else. It's what's in your market, what you guys work on. I love Therm, I love Rationale, Autosham. The big 3 or 4 is my favorite. Everything else I can kind of do without, but it's got to be there. It's got a place, and we got to service it. This is how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Kitchen Cowboy, he actually had a pretty cool demo board this week. So he says, got to build those demo boards. He is always working on more. He had one this week of an oven. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but it was an oven. It had a freaking gas line, had 3 burners, had a flame sensor, had an igniter, dude, and he had it under a hood and lit that thing off, dude. It was shooting like a 3-foot flame up and burning.
Oh wow,
that was pretty cool. So yeah, I like boards. I think every shop that does refrigeration should have a board. Sefesta has one for their training for refrigeration, and it's a walk-in freezer. So you have to wire incoming power to switch, a fuse, a temp control. You have a defrost termination clock. You have a light, but you can use something else. You have a light for your refrigeration solenoid. You have a light for your fan. You have a light for your defrost heater. Then you have potentiometers that work for your defrost termination, fan delay, that kind of stuff. And I think everybody that does refrigeration should have one of those, because it never seems to fail. You get a guy that he gets a defrost clock and he just beats himself up. He can't wire it. He can't figure it out. I mean, it's just one of those things, and people just don't do it enough, I think, because I'll be honest.
I do maybe once a year, and I get it, but I always have to look back at the schematic and make sure I'm not crossing wires and about to make some fireworks.
Yeah, it's a troubleshooting it to make sure it's wired right. It's the biggest issue. But like even when I go to I have to put it together first, because I just let the guys do it, and they're like, they bring it over, and I have to check it before they plug it in and make sure they don't blow the fuse. And most of the time, I go in the day before and I'll do it, or I'll hang out later and I'll do it, so I remember how to do it. Because Sefesta, we can't do them dirty. They're all red wires. None of the wires are colored.
Yeah, I had heard that it's all the same color wire.
Nightmare.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they do that because in the field you get lucky if it's a straight shot, but sometimes we know how it is. Sometimes that defrost clock's outside and it hits 2 junction boxes away inside. And you get it outside, you had a purple and an orange. Inside, you had a yellow and a brown. You're like, where'd the purple and orange go?
Yeah. I had a condensing unit that was all wired with just green wires. I don't know who put it in, who worked on it. And I was like, call me old-fashioned, but I think green should be reserved for ground. But everything in there was green.
That's what the code says.
Chris Stevens had a video, I think last week. It was a
I saw that.
It was a motor starter, an overload, and the guy took a green wire and he like wrapped some blue tape around it all crappily. And then he had a white wire, and the guy took like a piece of packing tape that said it was red, and said seal on it, so it was red. And then wrapped it around the white wire haphazardly. It was great. I was like, "What the hell is this?" Killed. So that's fine.
Electricians.
Or in-house maintenance. No disrespect to the in-house maintenance guys watching, but some of these in-house guys, I don't know.
Yeah. Some of them are great. Some of them are like, oh boy. So it's okay anywhere though. I mean, I know people that work for companies, great companies. They're like, how do you work here? So someone on Instagram wanted to know, what's your driving force? What's your driving, what's your motivation? What keeps you wanting to learn more and do more?
I think that I've learned that the more that I know and the better that I am at what I do, the easier my days go. And, when I was new, I would work on the same problem for hours and hours, just trying to figure out what's going on. And as I learned more, I figured out that I didn't have to be stuck there for hours trying to figure it out. So, I think just the driving force of always trying to be better and, continual improvement is really what keeps me trying to get better at what I do.
That's the same thing. Like I look to be more efficient. I made a post yesterday and it kind of went crazy because I bought a $55 refurbed Chromebook because I got sick of trying to do software for my phone. And I explained that we can't always get to the shop to get software. And some manufacturers you can do it from your phone. Some say you can't. Some say you can't. I've done it and haven't had an issue. But there's always that chance you're going to break a $1,500, $2,000 controller because you did something you were supposed to do. So, this Christmas time's coming, and Walmart had a sale on these refurbed little Chromebooks. So I bought one for $55. I mean, the thing didn't even come in a box. I mean, it was wrapped in bubble wrap and shoved in a Walmart shipping box. I mean, so I can't complain. But I made a post about it, and all these guys were like, "Oh, your company should pay for it." Yada yada. I'm like, look, I can drink $55 worth of bourbon in one sitting, or I can smoke $55 cigars in one sitting. I'm like, it's not about the money; it's about being more efficient, more practical. I try explaining to new guys, like, look, if you can be more efficient, you can do more jobs. You do more jobs, you make more money for the company. It's gonna come back to you eventually. I mean, a lot of guys, they don't see it that way, so that's a good way to look at it. I try to learn to be more efficient and to be more practical, and it works out for me. So
that's why I spend an obscene amount of money on tools. My bad, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
Same theory. I spend way more money on tools every year than I should, but I'm like, but if I have this tool, one, it's easier on me, and I'm at the age where I want to make this job as easy as possible. I got a guy, and I'm not trying to trash on my coworkers, but I got a guy that I work with that when he does his rationale installs, he cuts the 2-inch copper drains with a hand hacksaw. Bro. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm pulling out my M18, saw that I paid a couple $100 for, and I'm cutting the freaking pipe in 4 seconds instead of half an hour. It's the same concept. Make yourself more efficient.
You can go to Lowe's and buy like a 2 1/8 or 2 1/4 pipe cutter for like 30 or 40 bucks. It's going to be faster and more efficient, dude. I can't imagine, dude, having a hacksaw on 2-inch copper, dude. God, I'd leave, dude. I'd be like, oh, they're stacked. It's on you. See you later, dude.
Yeah.
I can't witness this. Yeah, I get that. Tools are a big thing. I'm always trying to learn, and I'm always the latest tools. I've got job link probes. I've got the S-Man. I've got everything connects to my phone. My manometers, my meter. That's the greatest thing. If you don't have a meter that's Bluetooth capable, get you a meter that's Bluetooth capable. The best thing is, like, I do a lot of Arby's, and they have those little, they call them pods, but they're little cooking holes. They do the roast beef in them overnight. And when you work on them, you got to calibrate them. Well, you got to let that thing cycle 3 times, but it's a static, there's no moving air in there. So it takes forever. So I can throw a probe in there and use my Bluetooth meter, and I can go sit in my van, and I can set an alarm when it gets to this temperature, it goes off, or I can just watch it, and I can tell when it's cycled 3 times, I can graph it and everything else. I mean, tools, way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
So EC2Fix has a comment about the in-house. He says, it gets in-house hate There are some real numbnuts where I work as a field tech. I was thankful for being there since their maintenance didn't know what they were doing. It's that way everywhere. I mean, there's guys that aren't in house that are. It's like, how are they doing this job? So, and then
I will say. I'll say though, I've had a couple of locations where their maintenance guy has been there for like 26 or 27 years, and like he's on it. Like you know, he knows where everything is at, and what breaker goes to what. So I would say there's a little bit of both, but I think we all know which one of those tends to be more common.
Dude, I stole a house maintenance guy, and he was one of my best techs, man. He just had women problems. He moved away chasing some woman, and then came back, and then moved away chasing another one. I mean, he was a good tech, man. I'd go out to the casino, and he'd be there waiting on me, like, hey, it's this, and I think it's this. And I checked him, like, oh, fair enough, yeah, that's it. I'm like, hey, you want a job with me? He's like, oh, you guys are hiring? I was like, yeah, dude, come on. Needless to say, I quit doing any non-warranty work in that casino that day he started with us.
Yeah.
It worked out.
But it's like anything. You got people that suck everywhere.
Oh yeah. Yep. So Brian says he is a tool whore. I'm right there with you, Brian. My wife gets mad all the time. I always have box shown for True Tech Tools or somebody else, So okay, what we got here? EC Defix says there's stuff where I work that only in-house would know since it's almost factory level equipment. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. So Lee, he's a Milwaukee junkie. Yeah, I prefer Milwaukee, and I do some Ridgid plumbing tools, press tools. But yeah, Milwaukee's my go-to as far as electric tools and Klein. So
yeah, I love Milwaukee power tools.
What about meters? Do you guys like Fluke or Field Piece?
Field Piece, 400%.
I'm Fluke.
I had a Fluke. I don't remember which one, but I was like, yeah, this thing is overrated. I can't remember which model, but like I posted in one of the groups, like, okay, I'm gonna get a Fluke meter. Which one do y'all recommend? And whatever was the most recommended one, I bought it, and I'm like, no, never again. I had a UEI one time, and that UEI was so horrible that I got the supplier to give me credit so I could return it and buy a Field Piece. And after those two, I'm like, I'm just sticking with Field Piece.
Oh man,
you gotta watch that one UEI, man, because it says on there, do not use below 32 degrees, because once it gets below 32 degrees, it won't work. And we are famous for giving that to refrigeration techs. I'm like, dude, freezer meter don't work, you're gonna get somebody killed. So I think we're away with that meter finally. So Ben has a pretty good comment here. He said, in-house hopefully saves you from the infamous unit unplugged or gas quick connect not connected, but other times it's just job security. Yeah, and I see that a lot. The infamous gas or the electric. That makes sense. If you have an in-house guy, have him check it. I've got in-house guys that refuse to do anything now. I'm like, why? What do you guys do? Oh, we call you. Fair enough, man. Fair enough. I guess you're a glorified, dispatcher.
My favorite in-house guy was at a hotel that when I was in Florida, the company I worked for used to service. And the first time I went there, I went to fix an ice maker, and his boss is like, make sure you go up there and you watch him, make sure he's doing it right or some crap like that. And the guy looks at her and he goes, I don't know what the hell he's doing. How am I supposed to know if he's doing it right or not? He's like, bro, you go upstairs. I'm going to go paint. And that was the end of that. I'm like, yeah, that's my favorite guy right there.
Nice. Yeah, Adrian in the house. What's up, Adrian? Yeah, we hired a maintenance guy from a hotel. I'm like, they had like a pretty good breakfast. They had like a rationale, self-contained hood. They had this little dish. It was actually a pretty good. So it was like a 44 dish machine. It was Canadian though. It was weird, super weird. Had air gap in the back, and that's how I adjusted, the levels of the tank. But they'd go bad, and you have to like try to get this thing away from the wall to change those air gaps. And this maintenance guy, we go in there and he talk shit, like he'd run his mouth about us. And then like 3 years later, I'm like, oh, the new guy started. I'm like, I walk in, it's this guy from the hotel. I'm like, that's that same dude that used to talk so much shit. I was like, hey, let's take him to this hotel and see if he can fix this dish machine. Needless to say, he didn't last. So, Toby, you said you do some training. So, have you trained any guys like considerably older than you, like old enough to be your father?
Mm-hmm.
How does that
Yeah.
go?
So there the technician that I've been training to work with us in Northern Arizona, he's been with us since just after Christmas this past year, and he's 40, I believe. So he's got some more life experience, but he is, he's doing really well. And I think that the work that he's done in the past, in adjacent industries as far as maintenance and things like that, sort of gave him an advantage into coming into this. So he's doing good. And honestly, the difference between my age and his age, I don't really think that matters unless you have like a newer guy that they think that they know more than you just because they're older and more experienced. And I have seen that before, but I don't think that's always the case or a factor.
That's cool.
Yeah, I like asking the younger guys that because I've been in that role where I've had to, I've had guys come in that were considerably older than me when I was younger, and like, oh, can you train them? Can you show them how to do this, this, and this? And most of the time, they just, if you get a guy that's has some experience, and you just have to show them like, our operating system or our computer or whatever, or the way we do things, they don't want to hear it. They just, they're already over it and that kind of stuff. So I always like to ask the younger guys, especially the ones that are actively involved in training.
And honestly, my take on it is if somebody wants to learn, whether they're 18 or 50, they're going to put in the effort to being open and actively trying to learn. So I really think that it's more just about the mindset than it is the age.
Yep. I mean, I'll respect anybody. I don't care how old you are. You're willing to learn. You're willing to get dirty. You're willing to get in there with me. What I don't like is when you get somebody and, they've worked here a little bit, and to the point where they be getting in there, getting involved, getting their hands dirty, and, they don't want to do it. They just want to sit back and watch. I'm like, oh, that's not going to work anymore because I'll go sit in the truck and I'll let you sit here and start your own.
Mm-hmm. And see, the hardest part for me when training was reminding myself to take a step back and let them figure it out and be patient. It may take twice as long, but it's something they're going to have to do eventually. So, I keep having to, make myself step back for a second, let them figure it out.
So I've had like one of the hardest things I ever had to do was to train my own son. So my son, he's one of my techs. He was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this young gun thing, and he won't come on because he's too cool for that. I don't know. I think he said but you said you were too nervous. I've had other guys on here say they're nervous and then they come on and do great. So, but it is what it is. But that's one of the hardest things I had to do was learn how to separate home life because he was living with me at first. He moved out over the summer, but he was living with me when he was training with me, and that was like the hardest thing to separate. And I will tell you, he pulled this stunt one day. He always said, "When I'm in this uniform, I'm not your son." I was like, "Okay." I was like, so one day we had to leave at 6:00. It was like 5:45, and he wasn't up yet. I had my uniform on, and I just left the house. I was like, because he had his own van. I was like, oh, he'll meet me there. He showed up like an hour late. He's like, why didn't you wake me up? I was like, oh, I had my uniform on. I'm not your dad. And after that, he stopped doing that. So
that was a good lesson.
Yeah, he's a good kid, man. He gets it kind of rough. Everybody in the office is like, oh, he gets special treatment because he's your son. I'm like, dude, no, he gets it worse than anybody else because I will call him a dumbass. I will be like, are you effing stupid? I mean, I just like give it to him. I'm like, and like generally he's like, yeah, I screwed up. And like today, like he called me over something like a customer at a humongous chicken place. I won't say the name. It's not red and white, so you can. He's like, yeah, they're complaining that the filter, the first couple are fine, and then the next two, they're slow, and eventually it just doesn't want to pull it up. I'm like, dude, if those the first two fine, what could it be? He's like, it's dirty. I'm like, tell the customer that. He's like, I did, but he won't listen to me. I was like, filter 3 of them and pull it out and show him that filter paper, and then scrape the filter paper off and put it back in there and filter it last one, see what happens. He's like, oh. He later on, he's like, sorry for texting you all this dumb stuff. This guy's just driving me nuts. I don't know what to tell him. I was like, tell him to clean his damn fryers.
Yeah, that's how I handle those calls. And see, I'm the type I'll stay there for 2-3 hours filtering every vat on the fryer. I don't even care. Some people are like, why would you do that? I'm like, because I keep coming out here for the same crap. Like I've learned with certain customers, like no matter how many times you tell them they need to clean the filter pan, they don't do it. So I'm like, you know what? I'll clean it and then I'll come back out in another month and I'll clean it again. And I'll come back out in another month and I'll clean it again. I mean, it's got no problem. They're getting charged. I'm getting paid. If they don't want to clean it themselves, I'll do it. But that's exactly how you've got to do it. You got to show them.
take pictures, document everything. So I do picture of dirty filter, put it in the file room, clean filter again, and it works great. Like, well, we filter once a day. I'm like, that's not how it works. I mean, this place has a bank. They have 6 or 7 fryers in a row. I'm like, you guys got to do something, man. And they just don't do it. They don't care. It's that old adage: you can lead a horse to water, but you can't, force them to drink. So, paying themselves. Eventually, when someone keeps paying that bill, they're going to figure out, oh, they keep coming out to clean this thing. Maybe we need to have a talk with these people.
Yeah, but by that time, it's a day late and $1 short, and you're having filter pumps seize up, and all that kind of issues. So it definitely catches up as far as on the extra repairs that are needed after just not filtering. And not to talk about Henny Penny again, but one of the great things that they have, I'm not sure if Frymaster does, but the where it keeps track of how many times you filter and how many times you skip the quick filter. That's a great tool as far as just being able to look back and say, hey, you say you filter 5 times a day, but we we found out that you didn't filter at all for the over the weekend. So
don't they lock out if you don't do the correct filtering after a certain amount of times?
That's a setting that when you set the fryer up, you can either turn that on or leave it off.
So because I've seen some of them that they won't let you go any further because it'll be like, no, you haven't filtered, so you're stuck.
So this chicken wing sports bar place had the latest Frymaster touchscreens put in, and they figured out the codes and they figured out the programming, and they shut off, and they went back to filtering once a day. And we kept going out there for filters being clogged, and I'm like, I look in there, I'm like, well, it says they don't skip filters, and I start going through the program, and I was like, oh, they turned it off. They shut off all the automatic filtration because it was like their breading stations and their boneless wings. Like, hey, every 7 times you got to filter. We don't care. Like 1 or 2 times. And I put the times in there where it's not going to ask them between like 10:30 and 2, and then like 5 to 8. It's not going to make you filter. It's not going to ask you. That's their busy times, and that's how I set it up. Excuse me. But they went in behind me and just like deleted all the automatic filtration. And they went back to filtering once a day. I'm like, that was the whole point in you guys having these fryers, was to extend the grease life, to filter more and everything else. You guys just went right behind me and deleted it all. Like, oh, we didn't do that. I'm like, I set this fryer up. Yes, you did do that.
Can you change the service menu password?
I don't know. I know you can change the user side.
That might be something that
you need to look into that.
Yeah,
probably can, but then I'd forget it, or someone else would go out there. They'd have to brick it and start over. That wouldn't be fun.
Hey, write it down somewhere. Make a note in your phone. Right. That's what I do with all my passcodes. They're notes in my iPad and my notepad. So I got like Rationale passcode, Frymaster passcode.
So ours are on the internet. It's like our internet for general parts. You can go there and you click a button, and there's like a little key and it says passwords. You click on that, dude. And like if you come across a new manufacturer password that's not on there, you call IT and they'll put it on there that day. Nice. So it's like pages. It just lists the manufacturers, and then like it lists certain models or series. It's pretty sweet.
Want to send that my way?
I may be able to hook you up. I can't give you access to the website, but I can give you access. I can save the codes for you.
I appreciate it.
Nice.
So we're coming up on an hour. I don't want to go too much longer, but I want people to check out if you're on Facebook, make sure you check out HVACR Component Teardowns. Toby does a really good job breaking stuff down, and he encourages everyone else. If you have something you want to tear down, take pictures. You can do a video, a walkthrough, show it off, show why it broke, show how it comes apart, and that kind of stuff. And it's a pretty cool group, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. I just found it not too long ago, and then I look forward to taking some stuff apart. I got a filter pump out there. Actually, I got a Frymaster filter pump that's locked up. So I'm going to tear that apart. It's pretty simple, but a lot of guys don't know. I'm going to show some tricks on how to unclog it. What else? I took out I've got an ECM fan motor, but it's kind of boring because it's in the ECM side of it, so I really can't show anything. I don't have a swell capacity, nothing. So that's kind of boring. I got a couple of things I'm going to tear apart on there. Maybe we get Rich to tear some stuff apart. He won't do it.
I'll do it.
But
heck yeah, I'll do it. I used to do that way back in the day when I first started, just to learn how stuff actually worked. Any part that I found that failed that wasn't warranty, I ripped that sucker apart all the time.
Well, we have warranty shelves full of parts that get thrown away after like 90 days or 120 days. So I think I'm going to start cabbaging some stuff off there and start tearing that stuff apart too and showing stuff off. So
nice. And just an example of a time where taking stuff apart really saved the customer was this was a few months ago. I was working on a Henny Penny again, PXE 100 pressure fryer, and the control board didn't have any it wasn't turning on, nothing was happening. I had voltage to it, and rather than just replacing the control board, I decided to take it apart and take a look at the solder traces to see if anything was burnt up or what I could find. And sure enough, I found a blown up solder trace for the wire that goes to the pressure solenoid, and only the pressure solenoid. So I knew there was something going on there. So I went and I followed the wiring to the solenoid, and I found a shorted wire in the conduit. And it was one of those things where I know if I would have put that new $2,000 board in there, it would have instantly blown up, and that wouldn't have been covered. So, it really can save you and the customer a lot of money if you take the time to dig into things and try and find the root cause.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, most things don't, like switches and stuff like that, don't just go bad on their own. Something takes them out. And same thing with compressors. Compressors don't die. Everyone says they're murdered, and it's the same thing. There's other factors that take out a lot of stuff. And sometimes they do just die, but most of the time something else takes something else out. And you try to get your guys not to just look at a symptom, but really the whole picture. And it's kind of hard to do. So Lee Jesse Sinez wants to know what kind of van you drive, and do you like it, or would you prefer something else?
I don't drive a van. I drive a truck. No, I'm in a 2019 F-250 with a service body. And that's just because in my area, Northern Arizona, it snows quite a lot. So the 4x4 is really a necessity. And they're going to be putting me in a F-350 pretty soon. Nice. So I'll have a little bit more room, more storage.
Baller.
Nice.
EC2Fix wants to know who did the Teardown Tuesdays on YouTube? He works for Smart Care. He has some great videos. Was that Toby? No, it wasn't Toby. What's his name? He does work for Smart Care, and he's just been busy. Oh, it's Jack. What's his last name? I know it's Jack. But Jack does them. He hasn't done them in a while. I need to give him a hard time, see what's up. He lives over in Ohio, so he's not too far from me. But yeah, it was Jack. So he would take a part every Tuesday, and he'd break it down. He'd do a video. He'd put the camera overhead, shine down on it. He'd break it down on the bench, explain what it does, and So, all right. So, any closing words or any final words you want to give these guys? So, what would you give somebody that was interested in becoming a food service repair technician or refrigeration technician or HVACR technician? Anything you would give them to do or try or think about?
I would recommend it as a trade to look into if you're really looking for a good career to stay with. There are guys that have done this and they do it for their whole career and they're incredibly happy and great pay, usually decent hours. On call is something else, but you get to go a lot of places. I mean, my service area is the whole northern half of Arizona, so I've gotten to go to some really cool spots, and it really improves your skills as far as interpersonal and being able to explain things and have difficult conversations with managers and customers and things like that. So I would really recommend it. And I would just say, this is definitely a career path that if you're, just out of high school, this is something that you can do. And you can do it and, stay in it for quite a while and have something where, there's always room to improve and grow. And this equipment that we work on, it's the same here as it is on the other side of the country. And it's pretty much the same even on the other side of the world. So, if you spend 5 years under a good company and you really put the effort into learning it, you can go anywhere in the world and do this and be successful.
Yeah, that's true. We've been having some conversations with some guys in the UK, and they do the same exact stuff we do. It's just the same manufacturers even. We'll tell you that if a guy comes from the UK here and he has to work in a McDonald's here versus UK, he will love it here because there's actually room. I've heard how small McDonald's are there. Like they literally, Brendan, a friend of mine, he works for Garland. He talks about they'd pull a grill out. He'd have to get behind it. They had to push a grill back in on him so people could still walk through. It was that tight. He couldn't be behind the grill working on it. I'm like, that's ridiculous, man.
Yeah, it's insane.
But yeah, it's the same stuff across the world, just different voltages and different gases and stuff. But it's all the same. Principles are the same once you figure it out. I mean, it's a blast, dude. I love this job. I love the trade. I love the people I deal with too. You know, I've made a lot of friends with my customers, and it's pretty cool. Sorry.
Don't forget the free food.
The free food. You want to tell everybody where they can find you on social media? You can give out what you want. If you don't want to give it out, you don't have to. But I will say I'm going to link to the HVACR component teardown Facebook group in the comments. I'll link it in the podcast form as well. That's a pretty cool group. Make sure you guys check that out. And is there anything anywhere else you want to give out, Toby?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. My LinkedIn profile is Toby Overton, but other than that, that's really the that and the Facebook group are my only two trade social media accounts.
Sweet. Well, I just want to take a quick moment because it is the day before Thanksgiving. I want to thank everybody for support for this year. It's been a wild year this year. I never thought I'd see the growth I've seen. I never thought I'd be up here every week with Rich and Jason and Dusty and the guests we have on. It's been a wild ride, and I'm excited to see what's coming next. And I'm just thankful for everybody tuning in and supporting us. And I want you guys to know that I really do appreciate it. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate that.
All right, guys. Have a good night. You don't have to. If you guys would, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast. It really helps us grow and helps us know which direction to move in. Also, if you have any suggestions for guests, please email me at commercialkitchenchronicles@gmail.com. Or if you want to be a guest, email me. Love to have you guys on. Thanks a lot. See you next week.